Welcome back, software engineers. In our previous video, we looked at UML class definitions. That is an object-oriented methodology of determining what objects are going to do what things and what can they have done to them. Now, that's great if you're having to code out a whole solution. But if you're using some prototyping or no-code type solutions, this may not be necessary. On the other hand, ERDs tell us how do we store our data? What does it look like? And that is going to be necessary almost no matter what, because we need to make sure our data is consistent and we know what to expect. Now, I have a whole series on creating ERDs and you can go take a look at. I'll put a link in the description if you're looking on YouTube. Otherwise, you can just get a really quick idea by looking at this. So I'm going to come in here and create a new document. It's going to be a lucid chart. And I'm going to come right here to more shapes, choose entity relationship. That's just one item. And I have this. Now, I have different levels depending upon what type of information I need to provide. So I can provide very simple things like an entity, for example, user. And then each of these are separate rows I can create. So I can say email, password, last login if I need that, etc. Very, very simple. Doesn't tell you what type of data is in there or anything like that. Now, I can get a little bit more complicated and have my entity. And I'm going to once again choose users. Now, a lot of times I like to use plural because it's going to store multiple users, multiple surveys, multiple whatever. And I might have, for example, my primary key. This is what uniquely identifies every row. And this is going to be maybe my email address. I might have nothing for my password. And then if I want to do a search for something, I'll put a name key and then full name. Now you notice that I have a lot of kind of overlap here, so I'm going to take my box, adjust the size, and then this column, notice I have a little box up at the top. I can adjust it like that. That gives me two columns that I can take a look at. That allows me to define my keys, my name key, that's going to be something that's going to be searched on, and then my entity, and then the attributes for my entity. Now I have one more, it's a little bit more complicated. This has three columns. Once again, I'm going to say users. I have my keys, so I can say primary key for my email. And I can specify it's a string. Nothing for my password. It's also going to be a string. I have my name key. And this is going to be, for example, my full name once again, which is also a string. Once again, I need to resize this. And I'll need to resize this just a little bit more because I have the three columns. So which one you use depends upon how detailed you want to get. And you can switch between these. So I can select my most simplest user over here. And on my property panel, I can change my entity to be one that has either 2 or 3 columns. And then I can resize as I need to. So a lot of times we start off simple and we start to get more and more complex. Now, we probably won't call this a string. We'll probably call this like a varchar because we're using database terminology, and that's fine. Okay, but now we want to look at how do I set up relationships between things. So I'll have, for example, another element. I can keep this one simple. Surveys, start date, end date, and I get the tab key to go between new columns. And I'll pick something else, time that we want to specify, or, maybe I don't want anything. Okay, so I'll come in here and I'm going to choose my survey ID. Now my survey ID, I want to move this up. Don't really have a way to do that. So what I'm going to do is come over here, survey ID, choose delete that. So notice I got rid of that row. Choose my start date and choose above. This adds one above, survey ID. So once again, I have my email, which is unique for my users, my survey, that's unique for them. Perfect. Now, I'm going to add one more new entity. This is going to be my survey results. And so what I'm going to need to do is I need to know, hey, what survey is this? So survey ID, I'm going to go from survey to my survey results. This creates a one-to-many relationship. So I could have a lot of different results. Now what I'm going to do is going to say, I need to have one for my survey taker. This is who's taking my survey. So I'll come here, my user, and then I'll specify, hey, you know what? There you go. You're a survey taker. But we also need to know who the survey is about. So survey 4. Where does this come from? Well, this is going to be from another user. So notice I can actually pull off 2 like that. So what is this? Well, these are what we know as a foreign key. So this is where we're talking about one table and it has its own separate set of information. So I'm probably going to need lots more entities. Things like what questions are being asked? Are they being grouped? What are the answers for each of these survey results? Or do I have a generic field that I can look in for that? So this is going to be very specific to your project that you're working on. But this helps us get an idea of how do we need to design our database. Now, a lot of times in no-code solutions, we are going to have simplified databases. They're not going to be as robust. Maybe they don't allow us to have relationships. So we'll have to take this and modify and tweak this a little bit. In some cases, they have full relationships, and that's fine. It's just a matter of, hey, how do we want to do this? What makes the most sense? And so we need to know how we lay these things out. Be able to define our entities, the attributes that define our entities, and how they're related is very, very important. The great news is once I have this done, I can take this to a database administrator or a database developer, and they can quickly build on it. Once again, the idea of being able to take things from one plan and start to hand it out to people so they can start building it allows us to develop things much faster. Very important when we look at the fact that, hey, when we build our MVP, we're looking at that 4 to 8 weeks to get something done in the hands of people and then work on continuously updating and developing it. Hopefully you found this information helpful. We're going to look coming up at some more steps of how do we start working on building out our MVP. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that.